Hello and welcome to Faith is Hope. I'm Dave. First, I want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. For me, Thanksgiving isn't about turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, pumpkin pie. Okay, well, maybe the pumpkin pie. It's a time to remember and reflect on all that I am grateful for, what I'm thankful for everything that God has given me, because everything comes from God. And He has truly blessed me and my family. And that's why I say thank you. Let's talk about sin and what it is. We all have our own ideas or beliefs of what sin is, but what does God say sin is? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as an offense against religious or moral law, an action that is or is felt to be highly reprehensible. But the Bible defines it as a transgression of the law of God. That's 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Okay, so sin is the breaking of God's law. But aren't religious laws and moral laws the same as God's law? Well, yes and no. If we think of a sin like a crime, then they're the same. Stealing is a sin, and it's a crime. So why is it so difficult for people to know what sin is and what it isn't? Well, mainly because mankind keeps changing the rules to suit themselves. God said that murder is a sin. Mankind says murder is a crime. But if you use the word abortion instead of murder, then it's all right. It's the same thing. They just changed the rules. God said that stealing is a sin. Mankind says stealing is a crime. But if you steal less than a certain amount, then it's all right. It's still stealing. They just changed the rules. But here's the problem. God never changed His rules, because that would create chaos and confusion. And that's not what God creates. God hasn't changed what sin is. If it was a sin 5,000 years ago, then it's still a sin. I mean, if God changed the rules in the middle of the game to suit Himself, wouldn't that be cheating? So why is it so hard to recognize sin? Because the world keeps changing the rules. Satan lies, cheats, steals, deceives, and corrupts. He creates chaos, confusion, death, and destruction everywhere. I've said it before, and I'm going to keep on saying it. The world is under the influence of Satan, and has been since the time of Adam and Eve. And that means the nations, the governments, the leaders, even the people are all under the influence of Satan. All of us. Yes, all of us. Because we all make mistakes. We all sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. So asking the world what sin is, well, that's a lot like smacking your head against the wall and asking for an aspirin so you can keep smacking your head against the wall. It just doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is to ask the only one who's perfect what He thinks. So what is sin? Basically, it's the world. See, when God created all this, it was perfect. But when sin entered into God's creation, the world and everything therein became sinful. Sin pulls us away from God and what He wants for us, to be with us here on earth, just like it was in the Garden of Eden before sin. But that's not what Satan wants. So the world attacks God, His laws, and His people of faith. And now people are living in fear of persecution for Christ's name's sake. So what did the world do? It changed the rules. If Satan can get people to accept sin by telling us that we need to be tolerant and accepting of what others do, even when what they're doing goes against God, that we should accept it. Go along to get along sort of thing. But when we do that, Satan wins. Twice. He got you to sit down, to be afraid of something that might happen, to deny God's truth, and then there's the person who's being lied to and deceived by the world. If Satan can influence the world to threaten people so that they live in fear, so that they'll turn from what we know is the truth, then he won that battle. Look, Satan doesn't have any rules, and the world makes up its own rules as it goes. And it's getting a lot harder to know what's right and what's wrong. I know that, and you know it too. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to preach to you about sin. I'm a sinner. So I'm not the one you need to go to get the answer to the question, what is sin? But I can tell you who you do need to turn to for the answer to that question and every other question you may have. God. That's why it's so important now more than ever that you know what God says, to know what Jesus Christ said, and to accept his gift of salvation, because mankind and the world have made the lines impossible to see or keep track of. Without God's word, none of us will ever know when we've crossed the line or how to find our way back. The world isn't black and white anymore, but God's laws are written in stone, and they have never changed. No matter what happens, no matter the threats or anything else, God will never leave you or forsake you, and no one but God can say that. Hey, I'm Dave. Join me next time when I talk about the storm. And until then, I'll see you at the rest area.